Welcome, everyone. Glad to see you joining. Oh, awesome, Rachel. Great to have you with us. We're going to jump right in with some announcements and intros so that we give as much time as we can to our amazing co-hosts and also to you in our breakout sessions. So I'll get started. You have joined the Research Rumble, hopefully intentionally. This is the 4th Research Rumble, and the topic is artificial intelligence in user experience research. You can view past Rumble sessions on our YouTube channel, and Janine, if you'll post that link in the chat. We also, as you know, one of our purposes of the Guild is to help people connect, not only learn in sessions like this, but also connect with each other. So we have a networking spreadsheet that we started at the first Rumble, and we've continued on. Janine, if you'll post that link, that is a way for you to share your details if you choose with others. Of course, you don't have to, and build your network, which these days is a smart thing to be doing. We also have a Slack group, and we invite you to join it. Janine will post the link to join the Slack. And finally, we have a survey for each session, and you'd be surprised at how much our moderators take a look at your input. So please give them some thoughtful input, and they'll, especially they want to know topics you'd like to discuss for future Rumbles. They will read your survey. So Janine will post a link to that evaluation form, and we'd love to hear your input. Well, for those not familiar with the Guild, as I mentioned, our main purposes are to bring researchers together, to have opportunities to learn and network. Another purpose is to help people who want to work independently. So there's a way to do that as well. If you have 3 years of research experience, you can apply to work with us and through us. It's a pretty tough market for working right now, as you all know, but that is one of our purposes of the Guild and something we're trying to build our expertise in. Okay, I think that was all the intros. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our co-hosts. First, Jess Weiss. Jess is a researcher, a research strategist. She's featured on the website as one of the Guild's strategists working freelance. So she's a great example, role model for working freelance. She's the past strategy director. Jess is the past strategy director at Struck. And one of my favorite things is she's an herbalist. Loves herbs, grows her own herbs, mixes teas. And kind of tipping my hat here, but we have a special giveaway for those at this session, and it's going to be some of Jess's special teas. So hang on till the end of the session. We'll have 3 lucky winners who will get a sampling of Jess's tea. Our other co-host is Danielle Green. Danielle is also a researcher, former research manager. She's also a professor of applied psychology at Claremont Graduate University and the director of their UX master's program. So you are in great hands with Danielle, and this is a topic of particular interest to her. So I'm excited about our session today and thank them both for their willingness to put on this Rumble program, which is one of my favorite that we've done. So let me turn the time over to Jess and Danielle.
Great, thank you. All right, so Jess, I have you kind of setting things up here. I'll be your slides.
Yeah, sounds good for me. Okay, so we told you a little bit about the Guild. We're going to go through we did some quick introductions, but we're going to talk about what a Rumble is, just so that we all come in on the same page. And then Danielle and I are going to go through and summarize both sides of the debate about AI in UX research. I do want to caveat for this one in particular that Danielle and I have very strong personal opinions, but for the Rumble, we've chosen a side, a pro and a con side. and they may not reflect our personal beliefs. So this has been a tricky challenge with the Rumble, is picking something that we may not necessarily agree with in order to see how the other side works. After that, we'll go into breakout sessions where you'll meet up with 3 or 4 folks from the audience, and we'd love for you to share your opinions, what you've seen, what you've heard, how it feels for you. If you don't have anything to share, it's absolutely welcome to just listen and observe. Part of the reason that we're here today is to grow our knowledge and grow our experience. When we come back together, we'll do a quick summary, about 15 minutes. I'll kind of popcorn some questions around. If you feel like volunteering and talking, that's great. If not, again, you're always welcome to just listen. And then if you don't mind sticking around at the end, or if you've got a couple extra minutes at the end, we will do some networking breakouts. So when we go to the first AI discussion breakouts, skip the intros for who you are, go straight to the AI material. Let's use our time very wisely there, and then save the who am I and what I do and how can we connect for the networking at the end. Okay, so let's talk about a Rumble real quick before we get into it. We use Brene Brown's model, and a lot of what she talks about is leaning in with an open heart, an open mind. I like beginner's mindset, pretending like I don't really know anything, having no opinions that I'm held to, listening, asking questions, and showing up to serve the work and to serve each other, and not bringing our ego to the table. So if you would not mind, we would hope that you'll join us in this mentality as we approach the rest of the Rumble.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, so like all of you, Jess and I are researchers, so we'll have to start the meeting by aligning everyone on definitions and goals and outcomes. I feel like I do this in my personal life. Like, what outcome are we striving for when we go grocery shopping? No, don't give me the list of items. Let's stay in the problem space, right? So just like that, we'd like to lay the foundation for our topic today, AI in UX research. But which AI? What do we mean when we say AI? There are a lot of terms going around. And what AI tools are we talking about? So many of you already know some of these standard definitions, but for those of you who don't, I just wanted to level set. AI is an umbrella term. It's for the field that encompasses all different types of algorithms, including machine learning, natural language processing. If you have used Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey or Dovetail or Grain or any transcription tool, if you've categorized qualitative responses by sentiment or summarized qualitative responses by themes, you've probably used an AI tool. Your Netflix recommendations are based on AI. The order of products you see on your Amazon homepage is AI. So most of you are already familiar with that concept and that overlap. But I just wanted to, for those of you who aren't, if you feel overwhelmed by all of the AI terminology and trying to figure out like what is really different here, you're not alone. I think it's useful to get all of this sorted out so that you know how to decipher marketing language and hypey clickbait blog titles. So I've linked here, there's a LinkedIn podcast on human-centered AI. So I would recommend that as a way to learn a little bit more about AI in UX research. But I've also linked, just for like general purposes, a 3-minute read on the definitions of terms in AI. So you can take a look at that. And I've summarized it here. So the big takeaways for this, the relationships among these common terms. Machine learning is a subset of the field of AI, and natural language processing is in here too. Not all AI is machine learning. Not all machine learning leverages natural language processing. Deep learning is, algorithms are a subset of machine learning, and they leverage something called simulated neural networks, which you may or may not have heard. But generative AI down here uses deep learning to create new content based on its training. So large language models, which LLMs, are a subset of generative AI, and they are trained on, you guessed it, a large amount of language data. In GPT's case, that large amount of data is just a big chunk of the internet taken from a snapshot in time. So GPT, as in chat GPT, the P stands for pre-trained on that chunk of the internet, which is why chat GPT doesn't know what happened yesterday, because it was pre-trained on a snapshot in time of a chunk of the internet. And chat GPT is the interface that you use to interact with the GPT model. If that is review for you, I'm so happy you're here. If that is new information and or overwhelming, take a look at that blog post, because I think it's a really good summary of some of these definitions, and it'll help you navigate this space a little bit. But for the purpose of this conversation, the past couple years, we've seen this huge influx of consumer-facing generative chat bots like ChatGPT, Bard, Perplexity, Claude. They've all gotten a lot of attention. And earlier this year, I believe in May, a state of the UX research industry report from user interviews asked UX researchers about their use of AI tools. And 20% of UX researchers reported that they use these tools at work. That was back in May, and I suspect that number is closer to a third or even half by now. And in preparation for this, we had a researcher named Riley Murtaugh who interviewed 7 UX researchers, did qualitative interviews for 7 UX researchers across different domains about their generative chatbot experiences. And she found that those UX researchers are mostly using tools like ChatGPT for research planning, qualitative analysis, writing, like writing copy, writing reports, and brainstorming. So we'll cover the pros and cons of using these tools, like Jess was saying, for user research. But for the remainder of this conversation, I just want to clarify, when we say AI, we're really talking about general purpose chatbots like ChatGPT. And I may use the term AI and bot and ChatGPT and all kind of mean the same thing. There are more specialized bots that are not general purpose bots like ChatGPT that are geared for different UX research tasks. And those tools are popping up more and more because they're leveraging some of the technology behind ChatGPT and adding some specialist knowledge to it. I plan to send out a list of those tools if you're interested, following up this Rumble. So look out for that if you want more specific AI-driven tools for UX research. Otherwise, for this conversation, we're mostly just going to be talking about general purpose like ChatGPT. Okay, so we're going to summarize the pros and cons. Jess is going to take it away with the pros, and then I will follow up with some of the cons of using these AI tools in UX research.
And Danielle, I think we had talked about posting that list of tools on LinkedIn too, so that it's more visible and available.
Yes, we'll be doing that as well.
Okay, great. All right, let's get into it. So I've been pulling from a lot of personal research, but also from friends and colleagues' uses. I'm going to try to use examples so that you have a little bit more understanding of what I'm talking about. But I feel like there are a lot of really interesting positive aspects of AI in user research, especially when we're talking about these chatbots, the GPT kind of devices. So for me personally, I'm a writer. I love to put research reports together. I'm super happy to play with words, but I know that's not true for a lot of folks. So what I've heard is that blinking cursor dread when you open an empty document can be alleviated from AI. Using it like a peer or another brain to consult, even having the AI write the research report for you, is a huge time saver. And that's sort of the theme that you'll hear through all of these pros, is it sort of saves us time. Danielle will get more into the details, but everything that we saw was saves me time. I still have to touch it. I still have to refine it a little bit. So obviously, I don't think there are any research reports right now that should be coming out that are completely AI generated. They should be edited by humans, but it can certainly take that first step for you. Another thing, and I've used this one myself, that I found really helpful, is the time to task reduction for menial chores. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the survey tool Pollfish. It's an excellent platform. I've used it a bunch of times. And about 6 months ago, when I logged in, they popped up this really great beta and said, we're trying to build surveys from an AI prompt. Do you want to give it a shot? And I thought, you know what? Every time that I build a survey, I have to sit there and scratch my head and go, okay, how did I do this last time? Can I find a copy? What questions would I ask? There's always some basics, but then how do I get into the more semantic ones? I thought, I'll just give it a shot. Wrote a paragraph. This is who we're looking for. This is why we want to ask them questions. These are the kind of answers that we'd like to see, and sent it off. And in, a few seconds, it built a pretty decent survey template. I would say template because I do think this, obviously, again, like there were some things I had to tweak. It got gender roles really mixed up. We were trying to talk to parents of small children, and they kept assuming girls. The AI assumed girls because we were talking about dolls. So there were some things that we had to fix. But inside of most of our tools, day to day, these AI chatbots do seem like a really great way to kind of skip forward or fast forward through some of the boring stuff. Once you've done your research and you have a whole bunch of open-ended survey answers, most of us probably know the sticky note method, where we kill trees and kill a lot of time writing things down and putting them on the wall and rearranging all of these sort of qualitative, open-ended, mushy, feelings-based answers. Another option with AI is that you can take all of that information and dump it into the AI and ask questions. Tell me how many times this keyword showed up. How do people feel about this thing? Can you summarize it? What are the positives and the negatives? Can you identify people who are outliers? The reading that I've done on this part is that AI is very good with clear feelings words. Hated it, loved it. Those are easy for it, but that there are still some squishy areas around, I use the product and this is what I found, where there's not really any feelings involved. So sometimes the emotional breakdown isn't as accurate as we'd prefer, but it's certainly a way to get a lot of the information organized and sifted through faster than we can with sticky notes. On that same sort of theme, using AI to crawl the web for you is an incredible boost. I've even just done this when I know that the answer that I'm looking for is probably in a forum somewhere because it's a little esoteric, and I could probably find it if I had the time to sit and go through post after post or thread after thread and like open, you've been in Reddit, it just turns into a wormhole. So if AI can crawl that for me and instead pull up the answers, much happier to do that and have it sort of piece the bits together. This one in particular was brought to me by a colleague who they had two 3D rendering softwares that they were trying to get to talk to each other. And so they had a couple developers, they had a UX designer on this. They were all trying to get the softwares to work. And this gentleman had the great idea to go to ChatGPT and say, can you tell me how to have this program talk to the other program and do this outcome? And the AI pulled up, step 1, do this, step 2, do this. Here are the sources. Here are some things to look out for. Here's how to troubleshoot it in just a few minutes. So especially for those more esoteric, how do I do something, that could be a very useful web crawler. Another, especially in UX research, another tool that we're seeing it being used for really frequently is transcription. A lot of folks use otter.ai. That is a tool like that, but ChatGPT is free. And so there's a lot of free options to dump in your audio files and have it transcribe exactly what was said. In the studies that I read through, they've compared Otter AI and a handful of others with free chatbots, and the results are almost exactly the same. None of them are perfect, all of them come up with some things that we all speak differently. We all speak in our own sort of dialects. And so maybe I slurred something that didn't make sense, and the bot did its best. And so obviously, again, human hands are needed on the transcription piece. But if you've ever had to transcribe even a 20-minute interview from a Zoom video, Danielle's grinning. We've all been there. It's a giant headache. And even just a quick transcription that I can go and edit and compare to the audio file is a huge boost of time saving for me.
Okay. Thank you for summarizing some of the great pros of these tools. I mentioned that Riley conducted these interviews for us with a bunch of UX researchers, and we have some pretty great quotes from that. This is one of my favorites. AI is like a cheeseburger. Like, you could die from eating cheeseburgers, but they're delicious. So I think it really encompasses some of the love-hate relationship that we may have and how tantalizing some of these tools are. And as a segue into some of the cons, this quote here, so if you ask it to do something and it doesn't do a good job, it's not because the tool can't do a good job. It's because you didn't ask it in the right way. I don't know, I have a toddler. I think it's very similar. A toddler. Not very confidence inspiring when we're talking about conducting research that affects people's lives. Maybe some of you have already heard the phrase that's been thrown around a lot. AI, is it a tool or a toy? And I think that that is sort of a compelling idea and thought here. So what are some of the criticisms when it comes to using AI in UX research? Number one, hair on fire. Everyone's worried in many domains. AI is coming for my job, right? Well, yes and no. The answer's not very straightforward there. On the one hand, I can really assure you, ChatGPT and the like cannot replace UX researchers. My graduate students like to test that theory on their homework assignments sometimes, and I can assure you, AI is not coming for your job anytime soon. There is sort of that veil of mystery surrounding UX research, though, which I think leads a lot of people to think they don't need training to conduct good research to de-risk big ventures. So we already have those people. That's not new. But those people will only be encouraged by ChatGPT's confidence and the level of detail that it provides. So I suspect we're going to see a lot of those leaders and business folks who are already, maybe they already thought that research specialists weren't necessary. And these tools will help them confirm that view that they have. It might also lead astray some junior designers or early career product managers and maybe boot campers everywhere. But those folks, they're already going to try their hand at research and they're already doing those things. And I think maybe these tools will actually elevate some of the work that they're doing and get them to a place where they can do better and better quality research. So the new issue, I think, with these tools is that bad research is just harder to smell by people who are not trained researchers. And that's really the biggest hurdle that you have, is it'll just be harder for untrained folks to detect when research quality isn't quite there. Beyond that, privacy and ethics are a hot topic right now. So a huge issue with AI chatbots is ethics, privacy. Some of these models were trained on copyrighted information without permission, and it's unclear how some of these companies are storing the data that you provide them and whether they're using that data to finesse the training of their models, whether they're storing that data. This kind of means that if you don't have permission to share information, or if you're sharing personal information in these interfaces like ChatGPT's interface, you're taking a legal risk and potentially an ethical risk. So if you copy and paste responses from a qualitative survey, for example, depending on how you do that, you may be violating the rights of your participants if you haven't asked for their permission to use their data that way. The same goes for anything with identifying information in it, like first name, last name, where they work, email address, phone number, etc. So some of these privacy and ethical issues are why many countries have banned certain generative chatbots until the privacy laws and regulations can catch up with this stuff. So keep that in mind. Another thing, big stories in the news we've heard, security and proprietary information. So workers everywhere entering proprietary information into tools like ChatGPT and then later being fired for it. So let's play this out. You copy, paste an R script from your organization's repository. That script is owned by your company, and you paste it into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to make some changes to it. You may be violating your company's NDA or security policies. So kind of a rule here, if you wouldn't do it on your personal computer, don't do it on ChatGPT. And if that line gets really blurry for you, because I know a lot of folks are freelancers and such, if you wouldn't do it on a public network, if you wouldn't do it on a public computer at your local public library, maybe don't do it on ChatGPT unless it's been approved by your organization. So think about security, think about proprietary information. Next thing is the obvious, the validity of the output, right? So I mentioned before, ChatGPT's training is from a chunk of the internet. Most publicly, all of the information that's been trained on is supposedly publicly available information on the internet. So if we could effectively do our jobs based entirely off of public information, we would only ever do desk research. It also means that if people wouldn't share that data publicly, so think about like portfolios or work examples from senior level researchers probably aren't being shared publicly. ChatGPT isn't pulling from that. It's not in ChatGPT's worldview. It wasn't trained on that information. So bots are never going to be pulling from cutting edge, mind-blowing expert case studies because that stuff isn't available for it to train on. Garbage in, garbage out, mediocre work in, mediocre work out. A couple examples from my personal experience. So the internet loves wordy, double-barreled survey questions. It loves writing surveys that way. Very flowery language. Therefore, ChatGPT loves writing flowery, double-barreled survey questions. No matter how much I coach it, actually, I cannot get it to stop writing survey items that way. And it just can't unlearn its fundamental training, right? So other things like it told one of my graduate students to assemble a board of directors for their 4-week-long homework assignment. So it makes some logical errors sometimes. And the validity of the output is in question in some ways. Another thing to address is just bias. Big, big bias. The internet's biased, ChatGPT is biased. You can't test accessibility. You can't, with confidence, take into account certain cultural contexts with ChatGPT or other bots. And that might sound like something that doesn't apply to you, depending on your line of work. But let me go back to my survey example. So I've done a lot of work in ed tech. And ChatGPT cannot write a survey that makes sense to 15-year-olds. It cannot do it. It can't write these simple survey items that I can use with that population. Think about your user population. What kind of language do they use? What kind of language do they comprehend? What kind of cognitive load can they endure, right? ChatGPT cannot take those things into account, even if you coach it. My lab studies technology that supports mental health and emotional wellness, and the bots cannot create good protocols for us or research materials for neurodivergent populations, for example. No matter how much context we give it, it cannot suss out what that looks like. So some of the cons, and I really enjoyed this quote, let's be cautious so we don't destroy the world or something. Very good, very cash from this anonymous UX researcher. My plea with everybody today is just educate yourselves on the risks of using these tools and constantly ask yourself, is the time you're saving worth the risk that you're taking? Constantly ask yourself that question. Okay, so now that you are all fueled with some thoughts on the pros and cons of these tools, we want to see what you think. So I'm going to assign you to breakout rooms here so you can discuss your experiences with AI tools. And the prompt here is just, hey, what's worked for you? What hasn't worked for you when you've used these kinds of tools? If you're not using them, why aren't you using them? So talk it out with other folks for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back together and share some of the most compelling insights that you all have from your group discussions.
Seeing smiles, I hope that's good. Everybody's excited.
Well, one thing I want to say is we hit our participant limit for this session. You noticed it. Our license is only to 100. We've never hit it before. Congratulations to you, Rumble partners, because you hit our 100. So for the breakout rooms, we always have attrition, so we're to 75, but that was great. Way to go.
Great. AI is a hot topic. All right. So instead of recapping what your group talked about, I'd love to hear what surprised you. What did you learn this time? What was something that you'd never heard of before? Tell us something that really caught you off guard, or that you want to go research more or think about more. And we can popcorn this. Let's do raise your hand and we'll just go through and sort of call names. Marjorie, go for it.
Okay, I learned that apparently Miro has AI capabilities, and I had no idea. We just actually got access to the tool 2 weeks ago, and now I've got to go check that out because that sounds really cool.
Yeah, a colleague of mine has been using it to build a client to train her students on their designs, where she can show the design to the GPT client inside of Miro and ask it to critique the whole thing. It's a hot mess.
Oh, wow.
It's actually really fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah, highly recommend checking it out. That's awesome.
Nice.
Who else? What else did you discover today? Sharon, I saw you raise your hand. Physical hand. Go for it.
Sorry, digital twins. We all have a digital twin out there, which is being used as part of the AI machine. And there's basically no way to get rid of it right now. So Noreen is a wealth of knowledge on this topic, and it was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I was in that group for a little bit, and Noreen was explaining that all of the data that's collected about us is assimilated into sort of a digital version. And I'm going to drop in the link in the chat, a link to Noreen's site where she's talked about this a bunch of times before. Highly recommend digging in there. She's very experienced, and would probably, don't want to volunteer her, but probably be open to questions if you have more. What else? Who else learned something exciting today? Or it could be devastating. We don't care. It can be anything. Go ahead, Marjorie.
I have one more thing. All these really cool links are being shared, but I can't access the chat because it's disabled by my company. Will they be emailed out afterwards, or is it kind of just like, you missed out?
That's a good question. I think we should probably post them in Slack.
Okay.
If
How
you're
do
able
we
to
access
join,
the?
Yeah.
So I just search for the UXR Guild.
we can send you the Slack link directly if you're
Okay.
able to access the chat link. But yeah, I think for the rest of folks who are able to access Slack directly, like that'd be a great place to have a repository for all of our links for each session.
Awesome. Thank you.
That would be nice if I could have the link to the Slack as well. Thank
Yeah,
you.
great. Great.
I dropped that open Slack join link in the chat for you all.
And then I've taken notes of a couple folks who raised their hand that can't access the chat.
Great.
Okay. What else?
I've got one. Have you all seen syntheticusers.com? It's simulated users for your tests. Yeah, a few of you are nodding like, I've seen it. Yeah. I find that very fascinating.
I'm gonna have to check that out. It sounds a little creepy too.
Yeah.
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, the synthetic users just sort of prompted the thought in my head again, because I had brought that up and I have seen that. Part of what we talked about in our breakout session was AI as a tool. What can it do? What can it not do? And I think to the point of, sort of not being able to imagine what it's like to be a 15-year-old, I don't feel confident in an AI imagining different types of users and sort of being able to consider all the different components of what it means to be a human so that it could do that adequately. So yeah, just the point for me being that like being able to think of AI as a tool and think of what it can do, what it can't do, and define those things.
Yeah, that's great. I've heard several folks who have been studying this for years say that the thing that sets us apart from AI is our imagination, our creativity. And that if we can keep that in mind, that we can stay ahead of the machines. Someone else had their hand up, but it's okay if you changed your mind. You're allowed to change your mind. Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, I'm also concerned about synthetic users. On my podcast, Human Centered AI, I had a professor come on to the show, and he talked about the dangers of synthetic users, and it was really interesting, like because of all the biases that are underlying these generative AIs. Not only can we not count on them for something really basic, like looking up a link on the internet, like to use it for something like complex, like a synthetic user, it just gives me shivers. I really hope that we never get there.
Yeah. I hope that in this world of machinery that we all kind of cringe a little, especially as UX researchers, at just the words synthetic users. Like we know the value of warm human interaction and primary research, and the fact that we would synthesize that feels sort of like a betrayal to why we do this.
Totally.
Great. Any other thoughts? If not, it sounds like you're a little eager to get into the networking. We can jump into the networking breakouts.
Jess, I think that's great. Oh,
hang on, we've got one more.
First.
Sorry, Ray. Two more. Oh, go ahead, Booker.
I just want to offer like a philosophical perspective, I suppose, because there's a lot of like fear around this and like taking jobs, and then sort of a response like it's not going to take our jobs. And I'm not an expert on this at all, but it does seem like eventually AI is going to get farther than we could ever imagine. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie Her, but it was a great different perspective on AI where everybody's little buddy companion, and it was really like dystopian at first, but then the the AI companions outgrew their like position in society, and they, instead of becoming our evil overlords, they transcended into like another realm of being. And it was really cool. And I think it's just good to keep like a perspective. There's also the notion that when people talk about AI being it's almost like racist towards, I can't remember the term, but it's like racism against artificial intelligence. And you know, who knows how far it's gonna go. But I think if we ask it for help and have a friendly disposition towards it, it'll be better in the long run.
Yeah. I've been reading a lot of science fiction lately, and it's interesting how they imagine AI as it's not a world-ending thing. That it transitions, like you're talking about, and becomes something different. And I'm happy to drop some of the authors and the links in the chat too, because they were reassuring and a little hopeful.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, Barbara, go ahead.
Sorry, my question is much more kind of in the nitty-gritty of using these tools. So I was just wondering, we mentioned that there are some specialized user research UX AI type of software, and I was wondering whether any of you had any experience with them, and if they help you navigate some of those challenges that there are with using ChatGPT, such as security. Especially I'm thinking about security and sensitivity on information that you may input. If anybody has any experience with that, with those specialized tools.
Yeah, I'd say if you do, drop them in the chat and let Barbara follow up there. That's a really great question. Thank you. Kieran Mai?
Yeah, I think just want to follow up where I was reading a book about embodied AI, where they were talking about how like we should look at AI as not like replacing humans, but more as how we would think about other animals in the animal kingdom, where each one of us have different strengths and weaknesses, but we learn to work with, other living beings, and AI is just another thing where they have its strengths and weaknesses, and we have to figure out how we work together. That was the perspective.
Cool. That's a great perspective. All right, let's turn it back to Ray and go into some networking. If you can stick around for the next 4 to 10 minutes, we'd really love for you to meet each other and get to chat.
Before the networking, how about the giveaway? So our new thing is to give something away in each of our sessions. And my favorite thing to give away is Jess's home mixed teas. So that's our giveaway today. There are 3 types of tea. One is medicinal teas. Another is just delicious teas, and a third is zodiac teas. So those, the tea specifically for your sign, and also an herb pouch that's just specifically for your sign. Anyway, they're pretty fun. So we're going to give 3 of those gifts away today. And here's how we decided to do it. We have chosen a number from 1 to 100. If you would like to participate in this tea giveaway, simply put a number in the chat. Any number between 1 and 100. And the 3 numbers that are closest to the number we've chosen, we will take. Okay, I've already seen exactly the number we've chosen come in. We will take those 3 people. We'll give you a link, and you can specify the kind of tea that you want. But anyway, it's just a way to say thank you for joining us. It's a way to promote Jess's tea venture, which I'm all behind, and also a way to just have a little fun for the holidays. Really, we do thank you all for coming. What a great session today. Danielle and Jess, thank you for being so well prepared, and really having one of the best sessions that I've been to on research and AI. So I appreciate it. So, all right, we're going to do this quick giveaway, and then anyone who'd like to, we're also going to do some networking. So if you'd like to stay for a few minutes, we'll set up some breakout rooms and you can meet some other people. So let's review. So we're going to cut off entries right now, unless anyone can't get into the chat and needs to give us a number. Like you can sign a number or something if you need to give us one. Everybody have a number in who wants to? Okay, then. Our number was 48. I saw one 48 go through. So,
Kathy Swanson.
okay, way to go, Kathy. And the two other closest to 48 will give you a link. So can you, let's see, Jess, why don't you send the link to Kathy Swanson for this
Okay.
form for you to tell
do.
Jess what kind of tea. And then what are the next two closest?
Sean Good was 47
Nice.
and
saw-
Booker was 49.
Mhm.
Booker Harrop was 49.
Wow.
And
Was
Cassie B was 47.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Cassie
was not. I was
47.
100. I was way off.
Okay.
Was there anybody else that had either 47, 48, or 49 that we didn't mention? I don't see anybody else, so
Okay.
congratulations.
Okay, talk about fun. Thank you all for participating. So we have about 50 participants. I'm going to set up 10 breakout rooms. If you'd like to participate, it'll just be a few minutes. You can actually network for as long as you'd like. Thanks again, Jess and Danielle, for a fabulous session.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. We really enjoy this.